So in this video, I want to look at the book of Daniel, which is found in the Old Testament, and look at chapter 9, which contains a prayer from the prophet Daniel. However, before delving into that, I think a bit of background information would be helpful. In fulfilling the curses of the covenant found in the book of Deuteronomy, another Old Testament book, which contained the laws of Moses, the laws of God. God had allowed the Babylonian armies to capture Judah and the capital city of Jerusalem, and to take many of the Jewish people as captives back to Babylon, with Daniel being one of those. And it's also important to realize that the book of Deuteronomy, which again contained the laws of Moses, the laws of God, that it was patterned after a well-known treaty back in ancient Mesopotamia, a treaty that kings would make with their subjects. The main part of the treaty were the king's commands and laws, and the last part was the blessings and the curses, how the king would bless his subjects if they obeyed his commands, but how he would also curse them, all the nasty and brutish things he would do to them if they did not obey his commands. And to make things relevant and understandable to the Jewish people back then, and remember, this was thousands of years ago, it's not modern day 21st century, but to make things relevant to them, he patterned the book of Deuteronomy after one of those treaties so that the Jewish people clearly understood what was expected of them and what would happen to them if they disobeyed God's command, with the ultimate curse, the final curse, being taken captive by a foreign nation and carried off into exile. So chapter 9 begins with Daniel recognizing and realizing that after reading the writings of the prophet Jeremiah, that God was about to do something extraordinary, something amazing. He was about to bring the exiles in Babylon back to their ancient homeland of Israel and to rebuild it. So Daniel begins to pray. And there's two main highlights I'd like to share with you. The first is that Daniel owned up to his own sin and the sin of his people. He did not try to make excuses. He did not try to make excuses of how they continuously rebelled against God and broke his commands and his laws, spanning centuries, and that how God had sent his people prophets again and again and again, and yet more often than not, they ignored the warnings of the prophets to return back to God, and in fact often persecuted them. And the second thing I'd like to highlight is that in realizing that God was about to do this amazing thing, that he was about to bring the exiles back to their ancient homeland, Daniel realized that it wasn't because of anything that they had done. They didn't deserve to be shown grace and mercy by God. They had been completely disobedient to him. God was doing this not because of something righteous in them, but it was because of God's grace and his mercy. So I encourage you to read this prayer found in chapter 9 of Daniel and make it your own. Well, I hope to see you next Thursday as we're going to be looking at another prayer from another young man, a man by the name of King Solomon. And if you would like, please read 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 4 to 15, as that will be the basis of that video. So thanks again. I hope to see you next Thursday. And hey, why not tell a friend?